Hello, welcome to another Getting Started guide. This one's going to take place right after the Arma 3 Launcher guide. This one is specifically for changing a couple default keybinds for playing on our server. If you've launched your mods correctly, you're going to see in the bottom center of your screen here, red one, mod pack, content pack, terrain pack, map pack. You may or may not have this green one, that's for the optional pack. Let's jump right into it. Go to configure. Go to controls, go to weapons in this pull down tab. Go down about halfway, there's an option for throw. This is the key for throwing grenades. Rebind this, the default is G. I recommend double G. You can change it to something else as long as you don't press it accidentally and kill your squad. People are going to make fun of you for that. Next, go to multiplayer. You can unbind, push to talk, and voice over net. You're not going to need those. They aren't really going to work on this server. If you need to keep them for a different server, like a pub server or something like that, just, again, bind it to something you won't press by accident. And that's it there. Let's go back a little bit here. Oh, make sure you press OK when you're done if you've changed anything. If you press cancel, it's not going to save. Go to game right underneath controls. These two are commonly turned off, aiming, dead zone, and head bob. Head bob is just the movement of your camera when you're physically moving in the game. It becomes kind of annoying if you're trying to spot things, and aiming dead zone gives you a little bit of a free play when you're looking around and aiming and stuff like that. Most people have these things turned off. It's up to you. Alright, let's go to joining the server. Go to play, multiplayer, bottom right, hit remote. Type in removekebab.org in the address, leave the port on default, hit OK. Only one server is going to come up, that's our server, /vg/, double click, enter the password 123456. It's going to load. And you're in the server. Congratulations, it's as easy as that. Now let's go back to the main menu. Alright, and if you're new to Arma 3 in general, go to this Learn tab. Go through all this stuff. All of this stuff is useful information. But we're going to change a couple more keybinds here, and we need to be in-game to do that. So you can either join the server, launch an empty map in the editor and put down a unit, or go to the virtual arsenal. Virtual arsenal is the easiest. Alright, the point here is this: we're going to load up a unit, play as them, go into the escape menu, and change a couple things. It's mostly focused on ACE and Acre 2 keybinds. We'll run through that in a sec. Also, if you want to test out any of the assets, weapons and vehicles and stuff like that, you can play with them here in the virtual arsenal and just see what we have. Alright, it'll be ready. There we go. We're going to be rushing. Go ahead and hit try on the bottom right. Now you're in the game. Hit escape. First option, top left, is going to be ACE options. Go through all of these one by one. Make sure it's something that you want. One of the most important here is on the very bottom, pane effect type. Go ahead and hit that. On the bottom, or on the right hand side here, you're going to have a little drop down next to setting. There's two options, color flashing, chromatic abrasion. Most people use color flashing just because it's like a white flashing on the edges of your screen when you're in pane. Makes it so you're still effective for aiming and stuff like that. You can still look around. Chromatic abrasion looks a little bit better, but it makes your screen blurry and basically makes you ineffective for aiming and stuff like that. I recommend color flashing. But go through these one by one, make sure it works for you. Next, BWA3 options, the green one. This is for a mod that's a little bit out of date. You don't have to worry about these too much. This stuff isn't used very often, but if you find yourself using some of the German assets that we have, go through these keybinds if it's something you need to change. Next one is RHS. Most of these are kind of the same thing. You don't really need to worry about changing them. The defaults work pretty well, but if you find something isn't working for you, this is where you would change it. But the main focus here is going to escape, configure controls like we did before, but this time we're going to go to configure add-ons now that we're in game. The ACE keybinds, the specific ones, you can go through these and change them, and I do recommend going through them just so that you know what each thing is, all the way from common to vehicles. But our focus here is going to be Acre 2. Let's change these to default because I have them set differently. Please. Thank you. Okay. Volume control, first one. For using ACE, the most common thing you're going to be doing is talking on direct. That's locally to the people around you, with your mouth. That's, within like 50 meters or so. The key for doing that is your push-to-talk key on TeamSpeak, the same key you would press to talk to your friends if you're just chatting with them on TeamSpeak. This key, volume control, default is tab. I recommend changing it to something that you don't press very often because you only have to do this in the setup process of an op. What it does is you press this key, whatever you bind it to, default's tab, hold it down, use the scroll wheel on your mouse, and you can change your volume for talking from whisper all the way to yell. Whisper means that your words will basically drop off into nothing after a couple meters. And yell means that your voice carries all the way past 100 meters, depending on how loud the environment is. This is pretty useful. Whisper is used for like TVT and stuff like that when you don't want people to hear you. And yell is for situations where you have like limited radio use, stuff like that. It's most common to be between normal and yell during a regular op. Alright, make sure you go through these keybinds and see what works for you. You'll probably change them later after you've operated a little bit and seen how you like these kinds of things. The default radio key is caps lock. That's what you use for talking on the radio. Alt 1, 2, 3 radio keybinds are for more the TFR, if you're used to that kind of style of talking on the radio, where it just automatically starts transmitting on a preset radio. The only problem with that is it depends on the order in which your radios were added to your inventory, determines whether it's 1, 2, or 3. And you might have to play with that a little bit to get it where you want it to be. I don't recommend using that if you're using Acre here, especially if you used Acre 1 before. Let's go down. Radio left ear, center ear, right ear. That's Control Shift up, left, and right. That's just going to change where you hear the radio. So if you've got a short range and you press Control Shift left, that means you're only going to hear what's coming in on that short range on your left ear. So you know if you hear something on your left ear, it's short range. Change your long range to right ear, and if you need to reset it, you press Control Shift up and it will set it back to left and right. Going down a little bit further, cycle radio, change that. The default is Alt Shift caps lock. If you're not used to Acre and that works for you, go ahead and leave it there. I have it set to the Acre 1 keybinds. So for me, that would be Control Shift A. I am used to this. It makes me lean to the left when I'm changing radios, but I am used to that. This is for cycling your active radio if you have more than one. If you have just one radio, you don't have to worry about cycling radios because there's nothing to cycle to. If you have a short range and a long range, this will cycle between having which one is active, whatever. The one below this, open radio, default is Control Alt caps lock. If that works for you, go ahead and keep it. I'm going to change it back to my default Acre 1 keybinds, which is Control Shift X. That works for me. Alright, now let's go in game just so I can show you what this stuff looks like. So for changing your volume for direct chat, my key is end, but the default is tab. That's volume control. The mouse scroll wheel will change this between whisper and shout. For normal ops, you're going to be between normal here and shout. Make sure you check this every time you start up in the op. If it's a TVT, try to keep below, somewhere between whisper and normal. Alright, so I should just have a 343 radio by pressing Control Shift X. It's just going to open that up. Left click and right click is how you navigate these, changing things here. So if I right click and left click, it's going to be changing the channel, so my 343 radio, which is the short range. Same with the volume knob right up here. If I were to say, let me grab another radio real fast. Let's see, let's grab 148. Now if I press Control Shift A, I'm cycling between my 343 and my 148 radio, my long range and my short range. We are now active on 343. If I press Control Shift X, that's going to bring up the short range. If I press Control Shift A, which is my keybind, the cycle radio, it's going to go to the 148. Control Shift X, my open radio keybind, it's going to open up the 148. Alright, the way I like to do it here is Control Shift left arrow. It's going to put my short range on my left ear. Cycle the radio again, Control Shift right arrow. That's going to put my long range on my right ear. So if I know I hear something from my left ear, it's a short range. If I know I hear something from my right ear, it's the long range. Just makes it easier. You can do it. You can flip flop it or how you know, whatever works for you guys. But just be aware of these systems. It'll help you, you know, get used to Acre or figure out what's going on with the radios when you're playing games. So make sure you go through all those settings, figure out what works for you, play with it, change it as needed, but make sure you go through those options before you really start playing ops. Thanks for watching.